Sometimes getting there is half the fun. Other times, it sucks out all the fun. Welcome to Mystara for the latest remaster, Drums on Fire Mountain, the one with the infamous cover art of the Samoan pig orcs. However, there's a lot more to this module. It provides a unique challenge that few adventures do. This one has you on a time limit, a hard time limit. There will be very little in the way of resting, so you have maybe one chance to rest and recover your spells. All the while, you're on an island filled with hundreds of hostile Karakara, and you are there to kill their immortal, or at least the guy posing as their immortal. Where have I seen this plot before? I'm Mr. Welch, and prepare to play D&D's least kosher module. Technical stuff, first and foremost. Drums on Fire Mountain is a 1984 release from TSR UK, the site of TSR famed for their story-driven adventures. It was written by the immortal Graham Morris and Tom Kirby, with Brian Ruiz and Paul Williams doing the art and cartography. It's a bit short at 28 pages, but does feature some rather flavorful interior design, as much of the box text has a tiki vibe. Not that the players will ever see that. There is some handout art as well, something from the old days that needs to see a return, especially in the days of just putting all the extras online. You go to the temple entrance, and then show the players the art from a resource without having to cut up your book. This needs to be a thing again. This module, possibly more than any other, is a perfect example of how bad art can kill a good game. If you ask people what they know about the adventure, it'll be the cover art. Fat green orcs with afros and an undeniable Polynesian vibe. Not the nail-biting sneaking around, not the improved internal graphics, and certainly not the actual adventure. The art is that memorable, and not in a good way. When I was looking to update the older monsters for modern Mystara, the Karakara were the second ones to get the makeover. No one yet has preferred the older art to the Rubus reimagining. Now that we've fixed the module's most significant problem, according to the people who can't tell you about the module itself past the art, we can now look at the adventure itself. The party is hired by a Thaisian bureaucrat for a simple task, to track down the wizard Nika and stop him from attacking Thyata's shipping. In other words,
terminate with extreme prejudice.
The party gets their briefing and is informed they have a window of approximately 48 hours to get in, kill the target, and return to their ship. The target must die before the ceremony is concluded, hence the strict time limit. They will not receive any help from the crew once there, but they can keep anything they can take from the island, and if successful, everybody gets paid 5,000 in gold pieces each. As the Karakar on the island number in the hundreds, stealth is heavily recommended, or they're going to be swarmed. This is a guerrilla raid, not a kill-em-all. There is no time to rest when they get to the island, and more importantly, nowhere to rest. The Karakara won't know they are there until they give themselves away, but nobody is coming in for a rescue if they screw up. There is no retreating from the dungeon, healing up, and going back in. This adventure is one of the most difficult because it gives the party one chance to get the job done right. Beat them over the head with that information. One of the most challenging aspects of this module is that the Karakar will play it intelligently. Most of the villains will. If you start taking out sentries, they notice. If you wipe out a patrol, they will know something's up when it doesn't return. The natives will catch on if you start blowing stuff up, setting things on fire, or leaving a trail of bodies to be followed. Then they adapt their tactics. Patrols get larger, sentries get doubled, and the number of bad guys looking for you are increased. They will start expecting trouble, and they will change their tactics accordingly. Remember, there are about 400 of them and only 6 characters. The odds are not in their favor. The players will need to do things like scout the island to see where the best place is to avoid all the patrols. Going through the thicker parts of the jungle or the swamps, which the patrols avoid, is the wiser choice, though it means you must fight more challenging monsters. And there is no resting. Healing is limited to whatever spells and magic items you brought with you. Even though this is an assassination mission, it's best to avoid combat until the very end. Good luck getting players to understand this. But not all is lost. While the most direct route to the lair of the big bad is through the village, it's not the best route. The Karakar are superstitious, and as such are also predictable. They will not patrol after dark because that's when the nastier monsters appear. This means a fast-moving party can search for a way into the underground temple where Kalnaka can be found. During the initial briefing, they were given a general idea of where one of these entrances could be found. When they realize they won't be bothered by patrols at night, it gives them a little more leeway in their search. Remember that night is when the bigger monsters come out, so stealth is still a factor. Every wound received, spell cast, and charge expended is one less they have when they reach the end. Discretion trumps valor in almost all cases in this module. Side note, if you are the Dungeon Master and plan to run this adventure as part of the campaign, let them load up on healing items in advance. Despite the module's time limit and the large number of baddies, a lot of combat is almost unavoidable. There's enough time allotted to them for a single rest, assuming they can find a spot where the monsters won't discover them. Let them know it isn't like similar style adventures. They must keep moving and there's no time for lollygagging. Have them hit up the alchemist before they leave, and if they have any potions left over after the adventure, consider it a victory. Drums will drain their resources, but fortunately compared to other editions, BACME doesn't shy away from handing out magic items. And if you're going to run drums, I highly recommend you use the skill systems from either the Rule Cyclopedia or the Gazetteers. This one's going to use a lot of stealth, and you'll need to survive in the jungle for at least half the adventure. BACME doesn't do the full-on ranger, but players can make one easily enough with the skill system. I wouldn't suggest throwing the parties an NPC ranger. This is an expert-level adventure after all. They should be able to take care of themselves. Still, their patron does have some information about not just the target, but also the surface defenses, allowing the characters to take the necessary precautions before landing. The party needs to learn quickly that their target is going to be located underground, and remaining on the surface is a very bad idea. There is an obvious entrance in the Karakara village, but that route is going to be almost suicide because of the large number of baddies dancing around in their ritual. There are other entrances, but the party's going to have to search for them. You can make them work to find the other doors or let them stumble across one to get the story moving. Once they find one of the entrances, Drums evolves from a hex crawl to a dungeon crawl in short order. The island is only about 6 miles by 7 miles at its broadest sections, so it shouldn't be hard for them to reach the destinations. The buildings that hold the doors are not hidden and are easy to find once you know what you're looking for. The party will still have to play smart because there's not a lot of distance for the monsters to cover either. Once the characters are underground, it doesn't get any easier. The theme of Drums seems to be quantity, and the monsters they run into will often be in the double-digit variety, except the Sturge Gauge. That's in the triple-digit variety with those flappy-winged parasites. Not all of them at once, mind you, but in waves. Again, dumb parties aren't going to last long in this adventure. Worst of all is all the new monsters and how they seem to be designed to freak out the players. Like the Topi, these shrunken-headed zombies ambush the characters when they reach the creepy part of the dungeon. They aren't that powerful, but their timing is perfect. Most combats with them have the party responding in the same way. But that brings us to one of the strengths of this module, all the new monsters. This is a TSR UK product, after all. They would create an entire host of new monsters for the books if they thought they could get away with it. Drums is no exception, giving us some of Mystara's most memorable beasties. I've already talked about the Karakara and the Topi, and we have 3 more that first appear in this module. We get the fundamentals, the pigeons of the elemental planes. Not kidding, these are just the equivalent of birds, only made out of the relevant elements. They aren't a threat individually, they just do minor damage by ramming into you. The catch is there's usually lots of them. They're an interesting addition to the elemental ecology, serving as the simple animals. The Kalmaru are the elemental creatures of air that swarm over ships and tear apart the crew. They are nasty, and they get much more detail later in the Gazetteers, specifically in the island nations like Minrathad. The Agarat is another type of ghoul. One of the nastiest is this one has a ranged level drain attack. Granted, it's only temporary compared to the permanent melee level drain attacks, but old school players will clench just from thinking of that possibility. As far as I can tell, this is the only ranged level drain attack in all of D&D from any edition. Treat these guys with respect and kill them quickly. The Walking Dead man in this adventure is Kalnaka, and he is one of the nastier villains in any Mystara module. He's a wizard who also happens to be a devil swine. That means he's got a built-in charm attack, and he can take a beating on top of that. He was a spellcaster obsessed with shape-changing magic, and like most good wizards with nefarious intentions, liked to experiment on lycanthropes to learn their secrets. One finally got loose and mauled him and turned him into a devil swine. He escaped with his daughter and 3 adventurers who were loyal to him, and charmed on top of that to keep them loyal, and they arrived at Teku Nuraria, where the Karakara saw him in his half-piggy form and thought he was their deity. He likes their devotion, but he doesn't let it go to his head.
They call me Mr. Pig!
Now he commands the Karakara, as well as controlling the Kalmaru to get vengeance on the mainlanders, who unfairly cast him out because of a paltry few dozen excessively cruel instances of kidnapping, torture, and murder. He is a highly intelligent opponent, and a clever one at that. The party is there to kill him, but he's a wizard specializing in shape-changing magic. There's a good chance the corpse the party brings back isn't going to be the right one. Then we get to Marie, Kalna's daughter, and of course the object of affection for all the Randy character types out there. Despite a neutral alignment in BACME, she's rather evil, utterly devoted to her father, and really good at lying. She knows the layout of the lair like the back of her hand, and if she can talk the party into rescuing her, she will gladly get them utterly lost after directing them into various monsters and traps. She plays characters like a fiddle, can act like a helpless victim, or a competent adventurer, or anything in between if it wins over their confidence. Even if she takes them to her father, she will find out a way to communicate with him in advance all the information about the party he needs to know. If the party thinks with their privates, she is going to lead them straight into a trap. If they figure out her game, she will tell them everything that they want to know, just not everything they need to know. She will feign surrender, pretend to switch sides, and do everything else that she can think of that they will fall for. If they tie her up and leave her, she's got several magic items that will enable her escape. Drums on Fire Mountain is a well-written module that unfortunately doesn't sit well with many players because of all the restrictions that it places on them. A lot of modern players want all of their resources available for every encounter. This module is the opposite of that. Time is actually important for once. The characters are seriously outnumbered. They can't solve this adventure by hacking through the bad guys. They will run out of hit points or time before they run out of the bad guys. They must pick and choose battles, avoid fights, and budget resources. Kalmaka is a challenging villain, especially since he's not an idiot. He will cut and run if he thinks he's in danger. He won't think twice about sending dozens of mooks to swarm the party while he scampers off. If you want a copy, a classic module runs about $40, and this is in POD form for about $10 to $15. The next remaster is Quagmire, a module that was ruined by the editor and is held in such low regard that it was later retconned out of existence. Until then, remember, wild pigs are bad for you.